Good morning. We call the House Ag and Natural Resources Committee to order. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representatives Fritz, Grills, Hardaway, Harris, Holsey, Hurt, Jones, Marsh, Martin, Reedy, Ritchie, Shaw, Travis, Vital, Wright, Vice Chairman Darby, Chairman Todd. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. We will begin today by all rising, and we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have Vice Chairman Darby, please lead us, please. Thank you. I ask Representative Ritchie to lead us in a word of prayer, please.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the many blessings that you've bestowed upon everybody in the room and all across our great state and country. We ask that your will be followed as the important decisions that take place up here in Nashville happen throughout the week and through the upcoming months. We ask all this in your precious holy name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And at this time, I'll ask if there are any personal orders. Representative Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to welcome some special guests from Hamilton County, from the North Chickamauga Creek Conservancy, who have worked very hard and to help protect our natural resources. And we have House Bill 150, and they're here watching and observing us in action today. So thank you for joining us, Allie.
And Representative Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A brief apology and then thank you for actions yesterday in the Agricultural Subcommittee, and that Chairman Grills accepted Chairman Reedy and my presentation on the meat and meat processing bill, HB 394. I'm sorry that I was tied up in other meetings and that Chairman Reedy presented the bill. I looked at it in the middle of last night, and it looks like he fared favorably with you all. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment. Any others? Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of guests here, or at least one. Miss Tracy Childress, it's good to have you here, and your husband Wally along with you. They're some constituents of mine. They are from Dyersburg, Bogota area. He's a farmer. He actually serves on the TWRA board, and she babysits him 7 days a week. You're the woman. Thank y'all for being here.
And I'll quickly read over our historical facts for the day. Oh, we have another? Oh, Representative Hardaway. Sorry, didn't see you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to ask, whose constituent is the gentleman with the fine-looking bow tie, because I want to adopt him.
Sir, I'm chairman of the Murray County Commission. We have other commissioners here from Murray County and some other spectators here to address the bill that we have coming forward.
Chairman Sapicki's constituents, I imagine.
All right. Well, I'm going to negotiate with Chairman Sapicki, because that's a good-looking bow tie you have, sir. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Chairman.
No more articles of clothing being shown here. All right, no other personal orders. James K. Polk was born in North Carolina in 1795, but he grew up in Tennessee and cultivated his career in the state. He held several positions within the legislature and in the executive branch in Tennessee. First, he was elected to the House of Representatives, 1823 to 1825, became Speaker of the House in 1835, served till 1839 in that position, and left the legislature to become Governor of Tennessee from 1839 to 1841. When the U.S. made the Louisiana Purchase, they acquired an expansive amount of territory, and this caused conflicts with Great Britain. These negotiations went on into 1844. Then came the Democratic candidate from Tennessee, James K. Polk, who ran on the platform that he would demand territory up to the 54th parallel and 40 degrees, forming the popular slogan at the time, 5440 or fight. Polk believed in manifest destiny, the idea that the United States should stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific, Polk was able to secure a fair settlement at the border of the 49th parallel, calming tensions between the U.S. and Great Britain. Interesting fact that I did not know before I read that. At this time, without objection, we will take up our calendar, and we have House Bill 150, item number 1, by Chairman Hazelwood. We have a motion and a second. And Representative Hazelwood, you are recognized on House Bill 150.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, committee. I'm here today to present a bill that would classify scenic river designation classification for North Chickamauga Creek. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is a portion of the creek and 0.3 miles downstream of North Chick to the Visitor Gorge Center on Montlake Road in Hamilton County, and it includes a 1.5 mile segment of the tributary Cane Creek. It meets all the requirements in statute to be a scenic river, and there has been perhaps some misunderstanding, but all of the land adjacent to this river is currently already public land, except for one portion at the end of the designation, which is owned by a private party, and we do have a letter of support from that private party for this designation. In addition to that, this is outside the city limits of Soddy Daisy, so we have a support letter from the Soddy Daisy City Commission as well. This is a beautiful part of our state. There's a little bit of everything along this 8.3 mile stretch. There's gorges, there's trout fishing, there's kayaking, there's a blue hole swimming. It's really just incredibly beautiful and something that we want to preserve for our children and our grandchildren. And, you know, serendipity is a wonderful thing. The governor in his budget, none of us were aware of the fact, but the governor included $776,300 to create a new state park, the North Chickamauga Creek State Park. So this will just really enhance and fit in with that new state park. It will give an opportunity to have more management, park rangers, and that sort of thing along the scenic river. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would just request the support of this body.
Thank you. And with that, we will take questions. Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think you pretty much addressed my question that I had, but just to reestablish it, or to reiterate it, there will be no private property that will be affected without a letter of intent or without their agreeance.
The only private property owner is in support of the designation, and this designation doesn't change the usage of any property at all.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing it one day.
Thank you.
Chairman
We'd love
Hazelwood,
to visit you. There is an amendment. It's just a technical amendment changing the designations to something that's what people are more familiar with at this point in time. So that's what the amendment does.
it's drafted in Code 3673.
That's correct.
Do I have a motion on the amendment? Have a motion and a second. Without objection, we'll vote on the amendment and get it added on. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment goes on the bill. Any other questions? Representative Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not that anything is additionally needed, but this is a wonderful addition for Hamilton County and the state of Tennessee. It is a beautiful gorge that drains down into Chickamauga Lake and off Walden's Ridge, and thank you for carrying this bill, Chairman.
Well, I'm honored to do so.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in ag. That's why I'm not in finance.
But, sir, finance started at 8, and ag didn't start until 9.
Thank you for that
We missed
clarification.
you.
Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll be voting on House Bill 150 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We move on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Committee and Representative Sapicki, if we could, I'd like to take a couple of items out of order. We have some confirmations that are here with an entourage. If we could go ahead and work on those. Without objection, we'll go out of order and take up item number 3, HJR 299 by Leader Lamberth and Chairman Cochran. We have a motion and a second. Do we have a representative from leadership? Anybody else signed on to that bill? Okay. Chairman Darby, I think, will be presenting both of these. So you are, do I have a motion? Motion second on HJR 299. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I do get the pleasure today of introducing Mr. Brad Box. I've known Brad for quite a while, and I'm Rhonda. Excuse me.
We got out of order there.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I did not know that I was introducing Brad until just a few moments ago. So, but I was on the docket to introduce Miss Rhonda Moody, and I'm the pleasure to meet you here. I just met you a few minutes ago, but let me run down Miss Rhonda's pedigree here. Rhonda Moody earned a degree in biology from Roane State Community College and graduated from Tennessee Tech with a BS in Business Administration. After working as the chairman of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Cumberland Plateau, she, along with her husband Fred, founded the Sawbriar at Big South Fork, a meticulously developed property specifically designed with premium upland bird hunting in mind. In 2016, they acquired the Highland Manor Winery in Jamestown, Tennessee's oldest winery, to which they added the Sawbriar Brewing Company, the first craft beer tap room in the county. Rhonda currently serves as the president of the Tennessee Farm Wine Growers Alliance and has been a board member on the UT Ag Extension Board, the Upper Cumberland Tourism Association, the local chapter of Ducks Unlimited, and the National Wild Turkey Federation, where she served as chapter president. She is also a 2005 member of Leadership Upperland Cumberland. So with that, you have the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got to go out of session to hear from you, so we may entertain questions in a few minutes, but without objection, we'll go out of session. We're out of session. Please state your name and feel free to have any statement you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am, as you stated, I am Rhonda Moody, and I'm honored to be here today. I am a resident of Allert, Tennessee, or Jamestown. People think of Allert, they think of the Pumpkin Water Tower, and I'm fine with that. We, as he stated, my husband and I have a hunting preserve in the Upper Cumberland. It is the Sawbriar at Big South Fork, and we border the Big South Fork, so kind of fit with the name. But we do pheasant and quail hunting. And we started that in 2007. Our conservation efforts in preparation of the property started long before 2007. But we work hard. We've worked with TWRA for years to do as much as we could on a private level for the conservation of quail and turkey and different species throughout our state, especially in our region. So I am honored to be considered for this appointment on a regional level to help out where I can with the conservation continuation as well as the education. He stated my past history with the Boys and Girls Clubs. That was a fun time, a trying time. Kids are different these days. I want to get them out. I grew up in Scott County. I grew up hunting and fishing my entire life. I understand that kids today don't have that opportunity. I want to help them get that opportunity and let them know that the sky's the limit. And I think from a state level, we can work on that.
Thank you. Representative Travis may have a question for you.
First, I would like to say congratulations to be appointed to the board. That's a big job in Tennessee, so I appreciate that. But you got me excited when you started talking about quail, because when I was a youth, we would go hunting for quail, and now we don't have any quail. So how do you keep quail at your farm? What makes that possible?
Ms. Moody.
I'm sorry, thank you. Obviously, with the number of birds that we harvest every year, it is a put and take situation. That being said, we do have a lot of residual birds, and we have areas of our farm that we actually don't hunt because we know there to be wild coveys, what I'm going to call wild coveys. Now, were they there 10 years ago or whatever? They're probably residuals from the ones that we have released. But we're going to leave them alone. We're going to let them do what they do. And we try different food plots, different almost like cattle, rotational grazing. We do rotational hunting to try and optimize what we can. Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Hardaway?
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, ma'am. Like my colleague, I used to hunt a little in my youth. I hunted wild turkeys, and all I got was a whole lot of laughing. Those same turkeys, probably about 90 years old, still laughing at me. But I'm interested in what your approach will be to involve education and economic development as you serve on the commission.
Ms. Moody?
I'm from Memphis, Shelby County, if that reference helps.
Ms. Moody?
Bolton.
Thank you. I will tell you that my first experience in Memphis was brought on by my conservation and my interest in duck hunting at the Ducks Unlimited festival or whatever that was there many moons ago. So that was actually from a East Middle Tennessee girl to go to Memphis for Ducks Unlimited. That was quite an experience. But back to your question on the education portion of it, we are actually York Agriculture Institute, the Sergeant York's high school that is in my county, the only state high school in our great state of Tennessee. We are working with them right now on a project for next year to work with their ag department and the kids. They're actually going to grow some of our pheasants for us and get them kind of in the routine, start to finish. It's a program called Feather to Fork. So growing the birds, coming and hunting alongside of our hunters, harvesting the birds, processing the birds, cooking the birds, the whole 9 yards, so they can see that there is potential with agriculture other than the hard work of dairy, for instance, twice a day, every day, 365. You know, they might not be into that commitment. They've seen it happen in their grandparents. It's a tough life. Farming is hard, and no matter how you slice it. And so we're trying to give them opportunity to utilize their property in addition to those ways.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hardaway.
Thank you.
Any other questions? See none, we thank you for joining us this morning and congratulate you. And we'll go back into session without objection. We are now in session. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on HJR 299. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. This moves on to calendar and rules. I'll hand the gavel over to Vice Chair Darby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we will listen to your presentation of HJR 0300.
Thank you, sir. I want to introduce Brad Box, if you'll make your way forward. Brad Box is an avid outdoorsman and experienced lawyer and litigator, having tried numerous cases in state and federal court, and represents many well-known companies, business leaders, celebrities, and professional athletes. His practice is regional in nature and with a focus on matters arising across the Southeast. Brad has been appointed by the Tennessee governor, 50th governor of Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee. He has been appointed previously by Governor Haslam, the Tennessee Speaker of the House, Beth Harwell, and the Chief Judge of the Federal District Court for the Western District of Tennessee to serve on various commissions and panels relating to his legal experience. In one such appointment, the Governor's Commission for Judicial Appointments, he participated in the selection of numerous trial court and appellate court judges, including 3 of the 5 current Tennessee Supreme Court justices. In 2019, And again in 2022, Brad was appointed by Governor Bill Lee to serve on the University of Tennessee Board of Trustees. On that board, Brad serves on the Audit Committee, served as chair of the General Counsel Search Committee, and serves on the UT Research Foundation Board. In addition to his career in public service, Brad is a member of numerous professional organizations, active in his local church, and is an avid sportsman, and is the 2014 recipient of the Fred H. Sievert Award by the Defense Research Institute. He is also a personal friend of mine and one of my constituents, and very proud to introduce you for this appointment, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. As you stated, I'm Brad Box.
Hang on one second. Brad, we'll go out of session. Mr. Box, your floor.
Thank you. I jumped ahead. I'm Brad Box. I live in Jackson, Tennessee. I practice law there. This is my 29th year. It's still very weird to say that out loud. But I am a river rat. I grew up in Decatur County, and that has historically been a negative term, but I've always kind of worn it as a badge of honor. I grew up on the banks of the Tennessee River, and that means not only boating and water skiing and wake surfing and things like that that you think of, but as a child, I was running trot lines and catfishing and crappie fishing and duck hunting and raccoon hunting and deer hunting. We didn't have turkey back then. I'm proud to say there's a great population in West Tennessee now, but I did a lot of quail hunting back then. Used to run Brittany Spaniels, and Representative Travis, you're right, I missed those days. I will tell you, I walked over a farm just south of the Jackson Airport a week ago and scared up a quail for the first time in 40 years. It scared me to death, but I was thrilled to hear that sound again. It took me back to my childhood. I'm passionate about service, as you can tell. Years ago, I thought I would want to sit where y'all are and run for office, but I've come to realize that my calling is to serve. And my career is at a point where I'm able to devote time to do that. And I'm thankful for each one of you and your commitment, and I know how much time it takes. But I hope that more and more people at our position in life will step forward and serve. In terms of wildlife and our fantastic resource, we have some great challenges. And for me, I think the primary ones are ones y'all have already touched on. Representative Hardaway, you touched on one that is vital right now in our planning for the future. Our license holders in Tennessee for hunting and fishing, they're aging out. They're all retirement age, and they're going to be gone. And we don't have a new generation of people coming to love and appreciate this amazing resource we have. And we have to implement programs and utilize various different organizations, private, nonprofit, and public, the state parks, the universities, to engage young people, get them through hunter safety courses, introduce them to how to use firearms in a safe and effective way, how to fish. And you can't just take them one time. You know, I learned because it was just part of the community I was in, but I didn't learn the first time. It took years to understand how to duck hunt or how to deer hunt or how to go crappie fishing. And that's our great challenge with the next generation. And the other great challenge we have right now is, while all of us talk about how Tennessee's growing and how fortunate we are for the economic success we've had, the population growth is going to create a significant challenge for us. How do we manage and balance the competing interests of people who move here and they want to go kayaking, but somebody wants to fish on that same water? And how do we offer those opportunities to all of Tennesseans and do it in a safe and effective way? And those, I believe, are our two greatest challenges. So obviously, I'm passionate about the resource. I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Members, are there any questions? Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you again, sir. Thank you for your willingness to serve the great state of Tennessee. Mentioned challenges, and I'm sure this one's near and dear to your heart as well. This invasive Asian carp species is devastating Kentucky Lake right now, and I'm a little bit worried about the best lake in the state, Watts Bar, and so I look forward to working with you there for some
It's a
ways to meet that.
tremendous challenge, and some of you may know a great businessman named Jim Ayers. He founded First Bank, and he and my dad's been gone for many years, but they were childhood best friends and crappie fished together. And Mr. Jim tells me all the time that he can't even go around Camden anymore because there's no fish. And so the agency has done an amazing job, not only of setting in place structures that limit the spread of the carp, and Representative Todd knows more about that than I do, but also the way in which we're learning to use those fish because they're great to eat. And it's a resource, but I think we've started a fantastic process to deal with a devastating problem.
Representative Travis, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Brad, I am so happy that those quails scare you too, because it just drives me crazy.
Representative Jones.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Box. It's good to see you again. I think we just confirmed you in my other committee in Education Administration to the UT Board of Trustees, and so you're going to be a busy man this session. And my question, I guess, is just a basic logistics question. With your full-time job, being on the UT Board of Trustees, which we just appointed you to, and now this commission, do you have the capacity? How are you going to balance all of these different roles and give your full to each of them? I just want to make sure we can have that type of clarity.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. It's going to be a challenge, and my family's behind me and committed to help me manage it. I'm fortunate that I have a staff and some young lawyers that are fantastic, and there were stages in my career I couldn't have managed all this, but uniquely I hope to be, and I was talking to Representative Grills about this, there are lots of times that the University of Tennessee and TWRA are working on the same general issues and don't work together. The best example I can give you of that is CWD. UT was doing all kinds of research, and yet for a long time TWRA was not using that knowledge and that information to decide how to fight the spread of this disease, because in Southwest Tennessee it's a serious problem, and I hope to be a conduit of that. And there's all sorts of ways that we can make use of the benefits that UT brings with TWRA. One I haven't even mentioned to the director is the extension offices. We have 95 of them. They own hundreds of acres, and we should see where we can utilize some of that ground to introduce young people to hunting. If we could take 4 spots and create other dove hunts, that's a chance for us to bring all kinds of young people and teach them this is a shotgun, this is how you use it safely, and introduce them to those experiences. And so I hope that I can be a conduit for that. I'm sorry I'm losing my voice. Thank you.
Another comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for that answer, Mr. Box. My other question, I should have asked the other nominee too, but I've been meeting a lot with elementary school children who are really concerned about endangered species, and we have over 70 endangered species here in Tennessee, and I know a lot of this falls under the purview of TWRA. And so we look at hunting. I don't hear enough about this conversation about what are we doing for these third graders who I'm meeting with who are saying we want to save the gray bat, we want to save these endangered species in our state. What is your vision for the next generation serving on this board until 2029 of how are we going to protect these endangered species and for the next generation? And what are we going to do to make sure that we can take some of these species off the list? What are we going to do to develop an action plan as a TWRA board member, if you don't mind sharing?
You're exactly right. When I was a kid, all I knew about TWRA was those green trucks, and I didn't want to see them and I've come to realize that TWRA, the breadth of the things they touch and the incredible wisdom in terms of research and preservation and protection, it is the public has no idea. You know, Tennessee, we have so many not only endangered types of wildlife, but types of wildlife that are unique to Tennessee. In the Duck River, I think there's, I'm sorry, I don't know the number, but there are so many types of mussels that are only existing on Earth in the Duck River in Middle Tennessee. And so TWRA is vital to us preserving, removing them from endangered lists, and I agree with you that we need to make the public more aware that that's what the agency, part of what the agency does, and that we need to continue and develop that. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, you got a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad, I just want to take a moment to welcome you here from Madison County. Thank Chairman Todd for bringing you here, because I think you really are going to add a lot to this position. But not only that, I've kind of followed you over the years silently. I know about the work that you've done, and I just appreciate you and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Representative Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. And so mine is not a question, but just more so of a comment. I used to be a runner, and so in my senior year, I attended an event that you also were at, and so that he didn't mention that he is a participant in Ironman. So I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Representative Hardaway, you got a comment?
Yes, sir, I do, and thank you for being here, sir. And thank you for your initial comments in terms of how to bring young folks into the fold. Bolton High School is partnering with the Forestry Commission to extend the involvement of young folks in the areas of education and the economic aspects that are available out there in our wild blue yonder, so to speak. Do you have any thoughts on that? Any specifics about existing programs, how to expand them, or new programs or initiatives that will both educate our young folks and engage them in jobs and entrepreneurial pursuits dealing with our wildlife and forestry?
That's a great idea. There are programs in place, but we need to expand them. And involving schools, I think, is the best way to touch young people and giving them a path to, my oldest son has an ag degree, and he graduated last May from Tennessee, and this is a kid that grew up in a subdivision, and I never thought he'd be an ag major. And so I think young people, when they're introduced to forestry or wildlife, we have a new College of Natural Resources at University of Tennessee, and Bill Dance, who everyone knows, is a big proponent of that. And so I think getting the schools involved, even as early as middle school, and help young people see that they have a path to natural resources careers, because it's a wonderful career. And if you ever have a chance to meet the employees of TWRA, they are so passionate. And just like you described, these are folks that they knew from the time they were 10 years old. I want to work in fisheries biology. And I think that's wonderful. And we need to expose every young Tennessean to those opportunities.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you for the response, and I look forward to talking with you off grid on more detailed approaches on how to involve our urban children in particular with the opportunities, jobs, and entrepreneurial opportunities in the field. So thank you, and thank you for you've got a full slate. So now you have a branch of your firm that's in Memphis?
We are. We have an office in Memphis. We've been evicted from the Raymond James building. They're going to turn them into condos, so we're looking for a place to land. But I'm in Memphis. I was downtown in depositions all day Monday.
All right. Well, please let me know when you're in town so I can treat you better than Shaw.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hardaway. Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Box, for being here today. I know you'd mentioned CWD. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. And with your appointment there with the University of Tennessee and here, I would just ask for you to encourage them to continually doing some more studies. There's a lot of hypothetical, scary word CWD that's out there. A lot of the studies that are out there, is it something that we know enough about it to where it should be serious, but the predominant spread of this particular disease is amongst family units. And when you end up looking at the science and the studies that have taken place in other parts of the country, it can be transmitted through all these other hypothetical situations, but there's no known situations that has actually taken place out in the wild. But that's something that we continually hear from agencies and everybody else that's taking place and happening. So I would just ask that you encourage them to continually dig into that, because there's a lot of false narratives that are being spread about CWD. And it's something that we do need to be concerned with and not brush off the table, but something that impacts my businesses and hunters all across the country.
I agree, and it's been present in Colorado since the 60s, and they've effectively managed it all those years.
Thank you, Representative. I'll make one more comment. I've crossed paths with Mr. Box, and what an asset he's going to be to the commission. Thank you, sir. No more comments. We'll go back into session. Any other comments, questions? I've had a call for the question. Yep. We'll be voting on HJR 300. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay. HJR will be moving on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman Darby. Next on our agenda is item number 2 on our calendar, House Bill 447 by Chairman Sapicki. We have a motion and a second, sir, and you are recognized.
Thank you, members. If you'll give me a second to get set up here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we move forward, Mr. Chairman, I'll be requesting a roll call vote on every action taken on this bill moving forward, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is a bill that is long overdue for Maury County. It is designating a certain portion of the western side of the Duck River, Class 2 Scenic Waterway. Back in 2013, as I served on the Maury County Commission, we took this issue up back in 2013 and put a resolution forward to property and zoning to making sure that there'll be no landfill created within 2 miles of the Duck River to protect the natural beauty of the Duck River, the biodiverse nature. You just heard about the Duck River being one of the most biodiverse rivers in the world, not the county, not the state, not the nation, but the world. This river sat a long time ago, 60, 70 acres ago, on the phosphate and chemical mining industry. And there were people alive right now that would testify, if I could get them up here, that would tell you that you would not eat the fish out of the Duck River. You would not swim in the Duck River. It was that polluted. But through time, with those industries being shuttered, the Duck River has come back as the most biodiverse river in our country. We have an obligation given to us as Murray County by the state of Tennessee to enact zoning laws to protect that part of nature as we see fit. Like I said, in 2013, we put a motion in place and a resolution that basically limited landfills on this piece of property since 2013. I stand here before you now asking you to join with us in protecting this water source in perpetuity, making sure that we can maintain a clean water source, a viable water source, a recreational water source for the people of Murray County and southern Middle Tennessee for the foreseeable future. I can go into more detail, Mr. Chairman, and answer questions as needed.
Okay. Any questions for the sponsor right now? I know we have some folks on the list to testify. Representative Reedy, you're recognized.
Pardon my late arrival in being other committees. Did we already get our motion and second on this bill, Mr. Chairman?
We did get a motion second, yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
We have a couple of folks that have asked to testify that are on our list here today. Representative Hardaway, we'll recognize you first before we go out of session. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. To the sponsor, I'm always on board in protecting our natural resources. You said that the industrial units that had been polluting were shuttered. Was that through economic regression, or was it policy regulations put in place to shut them down?
Representative Sapiki?
Most of that was due to federal policy. The phosphate industry, which was mainly used in phosphorus bombs during the war, was deemed inhumane during the war, so that shuttered a lot of that industry. And then the chemical plants, through regulation and obviously being sent offshores to other countries, found the regulations more suitable to their business. And so all of those companies have pretty much shuttered on the Duck River to where now we're not polluting it anymore. And it's taken about 60 years to get this river back in the position it was before all of that took place.
Representative Hardaway?
Okay, so that I understand the legislation. This legislation will allow the local governments to put their regulations in place, or are you looking for the state to supersede local regulatory authority?
Chairman Sabiki?
At the local level, we have already passed this in 2013, protecting the Duck River from a 2-mile overlay of landfills. What we're asking the state to do is to recognize that they have a vested interest also in protecting this water source going forward for the people of southern Middle Tennessee and for the biodiverse nature of this river so future generations can enjoy it without the sources being contaminated.
Representative Hardaway?
All right, if I can phrase this correctly, you're asking the state to follow the lead that the locals have already made.
Representative Sabiki?
That's correct, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I think that's good policy.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Representative Grills?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, you said something there I wanted to kind of make sure that I understood clearly. You said that y'all passed a resolution that would allow no new landfills to be created or formed in December of 2013?
Mm-hmm.
Representative
Yes, sir.
Sabiki?
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you. Were there any landfills in this particular part of the world that were in existence at that time that were grandfathered in?
Representative Sapiki?
2.
Okay.
Representative Grills?
What were those 2?
Representative Sapiki?
We can go ahead.
Yes. So there were, Mr. Chairman.
You're
There were
recognized.
two of them that were grandfathered in. Chickasaw Trace was the county demolition landfill, has since been closed. We've closed that, capped it. We're waiting for TDEC for the final approval that landfill is no more in Murray County because it sits within 2 miles of the Duck River. We chose upon ourselves to self-regulate that and close that facility. The other one is a Class 2 landfill on the old Monsanto property that is restricted to 6 acres, for just the demolition and the materials from the Monsanto factory as it's being torn down. And it's 6 acres. We do have concern with that right now, and TDEC, I believe, probably has some concern with that also. They've just done some drilling on that, checking the wells there. There are 5 wells on that 6 acres, and 2 of them, I believe, are over double and triple the amount of leachate that's leaching into the water stream right now on 6 acres. Just 6 acres. So we're asking for help to make sure that and the existing landfill is there. I mean, it's grandfathered in at 6 acres, and we're not disputing that at all. But Murray County took it upon themselves to close our landfill that was within 2 miles of the Duck River.
I know we're going to have more questions a little bit later, but let's go out of session. We've got 2 folks on the list to testify and 1 other available. Let's go with, we have Jason Repsher and Sid Bryan. If you would come up and maybe sit in one of the chairs there beside the podium. And there's a button there on the microphone, and you can move those microphones closer to you so that we can hear you. There's a button that looks like a voice projection. If you'll touch it, the red light should come on, and y'all flip a coin on whoever's going to go first. And just introduce yourself, give us your name, and then you're free to give us your testimony in 3 minutes.
I'll go first.
Oh, I need to go out of session first. Without objection, we're going to go out of session. We're out of session. You may proceed, sir.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. Members, it's a pleasure to be here. As I look around the room, I think we all are old enough at this stage to know that generally there are 2 sides to every story. I'll take and shoulder some of the blame for probably not getting our side of the story out a little bit sooner. But given what I know about law and property rights.
Do you mind pulling that a little closer? Thank you.
That better? Given what I know, what I have learned, what I've experienced about property rights and law, frankly, I never had any idea this would get to this stage. I listened intently on several occasions, frankly, to the subcommittee hearing last week. And much to my dismay, there were a lot of good questions, but frankly, inaccurate answers, or no answers at all. At the time, the hearing seemed to focus more, if not solely, quite frankly, on water rights. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand. We fully appreciate that, and we understand that, and we recognize the importance of water resources and water rights. We own property now on the Duck River, and we're honored, quite frankly. And it's frankly amazing to me that we have that privilege and that honor and going to have the opportunity to be a steward. We get it. Water and the duck are, without doubt, feel goods, warm and fuzzies. When the topic shifts a little bit to waste and waste handling, even recycling, recovery, processing, and yes, landfilling, the subject shifts from warm and fuzzy to, frankly, hot. It's a hot topic. I don't think any of us, probably everybody here, knows the situation has evolved, is evolving, continues to evolve, the crisis stage that waste management is, particularly here in Middle Tennessee now. So there's no denying the need. There's a need, there always has been, and frankly, until they come up with some options that are not available to us in this day and time, there's going to continue to be a need. Last week, Chairman Todd stressed the importance of property rights, and he specifically asked, and I will quote, "Are there any property owners that will be affected by this bill, or any that you know of that will be in opposition to this bill?" And there was a long, extended, rambling response that ultimately concluded with a no. And I sit here before you today saying that's absolutely, I am impacted, absolutely impacted by this bill. In fact, I take the position I'm the target of the bill.
I hate to interrupt, but your 3 minutes has expired, but we can take questions if anybody on the committee has questions for you to allow some further explanation. Representative Holsey.
Thank you for being here. I didn't even know your side of the issue or hear anything about it until, yesterday, I guess. You're going to have to get specific with me because I'm a little thick-headed sometimes when I don't see everything that's going on. So you own property there that borders this river, and you've owned it for quite some time. Explain to me the process that you went through, if what you're wanting to develop on that property, and how long you've been working on it, and do you have valid legal, I don't mean property rights, I mean for whatever industry you're wanting to grow, do you have that, and how long have you had it?
Mr. Bryan.
Thank you. We actually acquired the property in January of 22. That was after 4 to 6 months of extensive due diligence. This is a very sizable investment we're talking about here. I did not take it lightly. I have around me what presumably is the very best legal team, the very best engineering team. We went into great expense and great details on environmental due diligence, political due diligence, quite frankly, title, and then you know, with the basis of all of that background and all the legal opinions in the world I could get, we ended up making a business decision and proceeded. And there's no doubt that we've got legal rights and legal standing in this property is absolutely entitled for what we're pursuing to do with it. The concept is an eco park. This is the old Monsanto property, as I explained. It has some Superfund sites on it. It has landfills on it. Always has. Well, I say always, has historically. It's legally entitled for what we're doing. The first things we proposed were recycling-related permits, the first things we pursued. There were 4 applications submitted probably May, June, July. And those specifically involved waste tire processing, 2 recovery materials facilities. All these were permit by rules, by the way. So in that sense, they're pretty benign. And then a waste to energy facility. And since then, in January, we filed 2 solid waste applications with the Solid Waste Regional Board, Murray Marshall. And one of those is both for the expansion of the of the Class 2 facility that's on the site now. One of them is for C&D disposal, residuals hopefully from the recycling processes. C&D is construction and demolition debris, and the other was for what they typically call MSW, which is municipal solid waste or household waste.
Representative Hosey.
Did the permits that you got and received, is that granted from the state? Is that where those permits come from, or the county? Or I'm ignorant of that process.
Mr. Bryan.
All of those applications and permits are issued by TDAC, so they're state.
Representative Hosey.
Okay, I probably have some more in a little bit.
Okay. Representative Jones.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bryan, please excuse me for if I am going backwards, but some of what you were saying was incongruent, so I'm trying to just get some clarity. So do you live in Murray County?
Mr. Bryan. Mr. Bryan.
I do not.
Okay.
Mr. Jones.
So you bought a business a year and a half ago, and your objection is that your business is adversely impacted by the designation of this river as a scenic river. Is that correct?
Mr. Bryan.
My position is this bill would absolutely kill the proposed use and probably totally condemn the site.
Representative Jones.
Sorry,
you need to finish, Mr. Bryan. I'm sorry.
It would, in essence, deem the property useless.
Representative Jones.
You described water as warm and fuzzies, and I just was struggling with that analysis of something that is so basic for our survival. And we have residents of Murray County here who are concerned about the pollution in their community, who live in that community, who've been there for generations, who are coming to us. And I just believe that is, who we should listen to personally. I don't know about my colleagues, but at least that's what I believe. And so when you talk about water as warm and fuzzy, are you trivializing the pollution, the impairment of this river, the concerns that the residents have that led us to this point?
Mr. Bryan.
Not at all. Might not have been a good analogy, but no, we take it very, very seriously, quite frankly. I guess what I was trying to explain is that topic, water, is well and warmly received. And by contrast, when you start talking about waste and waste handling in landfills and even recycling, apparently, it becomes quickly a hot topic.
Representative Jones.
I'll have some questions later, but I'll defer to my other colleagues.
Okay. Representative Harris.
Thank you, Chair. And before you purchased the property, were you aware of the resolution that the county had already made?
Mr. Bryan.
Yes. Yeah. That's a local zoning matter, and I was well aware of it, obviously.
Representative Harris.
So your property that you have, are you creating a landfill of some sort within 2 miles of this area?
Mr. Bryan.
There is a landfill existing within 2 miles of the Duck River on this property.
Representative Harris.
Did you get an opportunity to speak with any of the community prior to the purchase of this property?
Mr. Bryan.
I absolutely did.
Right.
Representative Harris.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my colleague from Shelby County. I'm kind of going down the same road he is. So you had a communication with the county government back in, you said you bought it in January of 22.
Mr. Bryan.
We had communication prior to buying it.
Okay.
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what was the communication? What did that encompass? What your intents were? Obviously, there is an existing landfill on this property. So you're not talking about building a new landfill. You're talking about continuing one potentially. Is that what I'm gathering?
Mr. Bryan.
The intent and the term is technically expansion. When you have an existing permit and landfill like that, it's a modification process, but there's a process you go through to expand it.
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what was the communication like from the county government whenever you bought that? Obviously, those conversations you were having were they friendly towards the idea of what you were going to do? Or was that a, no, don't do it, we don't want this? What was it?
At-
Mr. Bryan?
At the time, the parties we were talking to, and prior, the individual we actually acquired the property from had a history of having these communications with county officials before, and quite frankly, it was receptive and confirmed the need and expressed interest, frankly.
Representative Grills?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And trying to wrap my head around everything that's going on here. If the county passed an ordinance that was purchased in 2022, that's taking care of everything, why would we need this piece of legislation if the county is already taking care of it?
Mr. Bryan?
Because that legislation and some that's been passed in the meantime, this property's grandfathered from it. It's protected under the Tennessee non-conforming use provisions.
Representative Grills?
So you're saying that because of the existing landfill that was already there before 2013 when this was passed in Murray County, that piece of property had a grandfather clause in which allowed the landfill to exist, and this resolution that they passed did not shut it down. So what we are doing now is trying to change Tennessee law in order to stop the landfill from going forward?
Mr. Bryan?
That's exactly what's going on.
Representative Grills?
I think I'm like my colleagues. I'll have a few more questions after some more conversation.
Okay, thank you. Representative Travis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the question, sir, is how far is this property from the Duck River where this proposed landfill would come in?
Mr. Bryan?
The property actually joins the Duck River. It's adjoining the Duck River.
Well, so the landfill would be adjacent the Duck River, or will it be 1,000 feet away from the Duck River? How far will the landfill? It won't go all the way to the Duck River, I'm assuming. I would assume it would go farther back.
Mr. Bryan?
No, it's not going to be adjacent to the Duck at all, quite frankly, because as you can probably imagine, closer to the Duck, in most, not all areas of this property, but most, there's floodplain and waterways and floodways. So, no, it's one of them considerably distant from the Duck. We are talking about scenic designations here, and best I can tell, the gist of the scenic designations, all classes of it, are related strictly to scenery, what you see. And I can assure you, where both of these are located, they will not be seen from the Duck River. I mean, there's, in one instance, I think, and Jason can answer to these specifics more, but I think 120-foot different grade elevation.
Representative Travis?
And help me out, sir, with the landfill itself. Is this a high-tech project that you are doing, or is it just a considered a landfill like we did 25 years ago? What protections do you put in place that will protect the Duck River?
Mr. Bryan?
No, it's not what was involved in landfills 25 years ago, for sure. The rules and the regulations have, obviously drastically changed over time. If we do what we set out to do, what we're allowed to do, what we're legally entitled to do, there will be a whole process system in front of the disposal component. The disposal component, the way we're designing this, is just for the residuals. After they go through recycling, recovery, reuse, recapture, and then it's the, what we call residuals disposal. On your other point, and again, this is a tremendous resource here, so Phil, I'm gonna answer the question while I'm at it, but you probably should. Somebody should ask Jason specifically, what measures are in place now? What's changed in 25 years? There's not a chance that landfills, as you can imagine, are the most highly regulated. We couldn't do anything on this site that would have it more regulated than a disposal component. I think Jason will tell you every division in TTEC will be involved. Between linings, between what we know about this site, he can tell you how many borings, he can tell you the geotech, he can tell you the soil components. There's not a, now look, there's a very remote possibility that this development will have any adverse impact on the duck. In fact, I intend for us to be a tremendous steward. We're doing things like placing conservation easements along the river for mitigation banks and along the streams for stream credits. We have initiated, there's not a study on this section of the duck. This section of the Duck River is impaired. It's on the 303, TDEC's 303D list. It's currently impaired. And again, Jason can reference this, but I've commissioned them. It has never been studied. They've taken samples enough of the water quality, or they know enough about the quality of the water to deem it impaired. But this whole section, much to our surprise, and he can tell you the number of divisions that he talked to get this information, but this section of the duck hadn't been studied to a point that Mr. Box made earlier. Nobody knows to what extent this section of the river has been harmed or not. We don't know what mussels are or are not there right now. We've initiated, we've commissioned, we will have the answers, and frankly, and mussels is the one we talk about. I have full intentions of us knowing what's there. I want to get the baseline, and I want to be a factor in improving that and enhancing and improving it. So it could involve, literally, it could involve implanting mussel types and many other species of fish and wildlife, aquatic life.
Mr. Bryan, before we go any further with questions here, I'd like to hear, we do have Jason Repsher on the list too to testify. Then you've made references, so if Mr. Repsher, if you would introduce yourself, tell us who you're with, and you'll have 3 minutes to give your statement, and then we'll continue with questions for both of you.
No problem. Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I'm Jason Repsher. I am the Environmental Director for Barge Design Solutions here in Nashville. I've been practicing environmental consulting for over 30 years in Tennessee. 5 of those with TDEC in the Nashville field office as the field office manager in solid waste. And, I appreciate where Representative Sabicki in this bill is trying to go. It's unfortunate that he's weaponizing the Scenic River bill, since he's brought it up and saying he's specifically going after this one property. It's unfortunate that he's weaponizing the Scenic River bill that was established to protect waters in the state to hinder property rights. And that's really the crux of what's going on here. I'm happy to talk about landfills. I'm happy to talk about groundwater contamination that he doesn't quite understand. I can go through all those technical details. Been dealing with this for 30 years. We've got over 2,600 new samples on that site for soil, looking at what's going on based on the older elemental phosphorus, which is the stuff that catches on fire, versus phosphate, which is a naturally occurring, soil amendment, fertilizer, and the key to why those industries were down there in the first place to get those phosphate nodules. We are just not seeing gross contamination across that site. Because of the way the site was operated through the years, it is confined to the areas that were part of the plant operation. The rest, and this process that goes out there, is simple. You take dirt from the native area, you wash it, you get a phosphate nodule out of it, you have clean washed dirt that then was placed in tailings ponds. I think everybody's heard of the tailings ponds out there. These are the kind of issues we're looking at there. So we've gone through and already placed, over 800 acres of this site into the brownfield program, working with Division of Remediation to get this site to a point where it can be reused. This entire site is industrial zoned. Clearly look at the Scenic River Act. We're looking at a Class 2 designation all along the entire area is what is being proposed. However, this area is clearly industrial, clearly impacted by man, has issues going on currently. That is a Class 3 designation, not a Class 2. The sole reason it is being deemed as a Class 2 is because it has a provision in state law will say that TDEC will not be able to review the applications for a solid waste processing facility or disposal facility if it's designated Class 2 versus Class 3, which is a property rights issue. It's not about the site, unfortunately. It's not about the Duck River, unfortunately. I'm here to answer any questions that you guys have. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And we do have some folks on the list. Representative Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My short question is, did you, before you bought this land or after you bought it, did you buy it on condition that it worked out to be this landfill as you were requesting?
Mr. Bryan?
Help me understand your question just a little bit better, please.
Well, it's like did you buy it under the understanding that you would be able to have a landfill? If not, you get your money back, basically.
Mr. Bryan?
No, that certainly wasn't the condition. No, we did enough. We know the legal footing and foundation we're on. We know full well the permit's been transferred to us in the meantime. I mean, we got the permit. It was an existing landfill. It's been there for 20 or 30 years. Not only the landfill, but every other legal land right I could possibly think of, we did our homework on, and I absolutely felt good enough, strong enough, and confident enough in the consultation I got around me to make a business decision, which I made, and stand firmly on today.
Representative Marsh?
Well, let me ask you this. How did their resolution come into play with you before you bought this land? If you knew that they had this resolution some years ago that they didn't want a landfill within 2 miles, did you know about that, and did you study that, and did you deal with that?
Mr. Bryan?
That's it's a zoning, it's a local, as this whole matter is, quite frankly, it's a local zoning land use matter. And yes, we knew very well that that was in the zoning code, but we also know that it was done after the landfill was in place. The landfill has been in place, so we have protection under the Tennessee Non-Conforming Property Rights Act.
Representative Marsh? Okay. Representative Harris?
Thank you, Chairman. And I guess it's hard for me to kind of understand this, so excuse my ignorance on some of the questions I'm going to ask. Because if I was to buy a house that had no car garage on it and ended up going home wanting a car garage, that I can't be mad if there's no car garage. So if you purchase the land knowing what this resolution said from the locals, what made you still purchase the land?
Mr. Bryan?
Let me make sure I answer your question, so if you would.
Representative Harris?
What made you purchase the land?
Mr. Bryan?
I would say primarily a recognition of the need in Middle Tennessee. It's very obvious. And it's, this is a service. This is very much a need. And the property candidly, and we had done an extensive research and search all over Middle Tennessee for this very, trying to address that very need. And this property checked the boxes. To go back to your analogy, I think if you bought a house and then planning and zoning came along and said, by the way, you can't use that bedroom or you got to take that bedroom off, you'd probably have an issue with it.
Representative Harris?
And so you don't live in Murray County. Do you all, are there people that live near this area where you are going to be building?
Mr. Bryan?
Candidly, that's one of the boxes. Fortunately, not. The Monsanto, this is 1,350 acres. I own another 500 next to it. So we control 2,000 acres in this area. But the original Monsanto campus included about 5,280 acres, I believe. So it was much larger. And consequently, and it was out there for 50 or 100 years, mining phosphate. So frankly, there or not. In fact, the 500 acres I bought is for that very reason, to keep, residents from encroaching any closer than they could have been, So it's an extended buffer, if you would. But fortunately, no, given the nature of the business and the size of the campus at the time, fortunately, there are not many people close at all. And the duck being a buffer.
Representative Harris? Okay. Representative Ritchie?
Thank you, Chairman. And so me being a real estate agent, so you went in, feasibility study, everything's there, 2013. Man, I got this hearing aid ringing in my ear. Let me turn this back. So 2013, there's a resolution that's passed, grandfathered in for use of property based on the existing landfill that was currently over there. Then what comes along is, I guess I've got a couple different questions here. The primary concern or the crux of where we're at, especially with the conversation, is you moved forward with the acquisition of this particular piece of property because it made sense, and you had that caveat in there because of the grandfathering clause. Is that correct?
Mr. Bryan?
Yeah, it was certainly part of the decision.
Right. So with that, now where we're sitting today is because you did your due diligence. County Commission did their due diligence back in 2013 when they passed this. Now they're not happy that they cannot stop based on current law because of you being grandfathered in. That's why this particular piece of legislation is being moved forward. Is that correct?
Mr. Bryan?
That's accurate.
Okay. The second question that I have, and looking at it, Tennessee's seen a lot of folks move into the state. An absolute need for having a place to be able to dispose of items is extremely important. Do you know, or either one of you know, where's the next closest proximity landfill, processing plant, whatever it is that was intended to go on this particular property? Do you know how close that is?
Mr. Bryan?
Can I defer that to
Absolutely.
Jason?
Absolutely. Either one of you.
Yeah, no problem. So in this particular case, it's kind of a dual answer. So there is an existing landfill on the site that could be used for expansion, as Sid said, to be able to expand and move forward. So I think possibly where you were headed is where in the region, are we going with our material? Currently, we have 7 years of disposal capacity in Middle Tennessee left. That's it. There are 3 main landfills, Middle Point, which is in the news quite often, and then Cedar Ridge in Marshall County, nearby Murray, and then one over in Camden in Benton County. Those 3 landfills represent the only disposal capacity in Middle Tennessee, for Middle Tennessee materials to go. And in 7 years, they will run out as a total. Not individually, but all of them added together, they run out of capacity. There are proposals to expand Middle Point. There are other options out there for trying to go out of state. But other than those, there are currently no other disposal options out there other than a possible expansion of Middle Point at this point. So in 7 years, we run out of disposal capacity. And to further add to the problem is that that's for municipal solid waste. Demolition materials are actually at 14 months. The city of Clarksville, it's actually by county. It's a joint county run. Basically, Montgomery and Stewart County both run a demolition facility up there. They were just granted an extension that's going to give about a year of disposal capacity for Middle Tennessee for demo materials. And so when that runs out in 14 months, that additional volume, which is about 100,000 yards a month of C&D material, is going to start going into those additional MSW landfills because there's nowhere else to drive it to.
Representative Ritchie.
Correct, and that's where my concern or where I end up going in. Whenever I'm sitting down with clients that I work with, when they're looking to acquire land, feasibility studies, zoning issues, things of that nature. So you check all those boxes off, continue to start moving forward. Then all of a sudden, local government realizes that they didn't have the correct checks and balances that they're now trying to accomplish by getting this particular zoning class. I'm all for conservation and protecting waterways and everything else, but to use that as a stipulation to impede economic industry that we need in communities, that we need locally, and we're here, is overreach in my opinion. I just want to make sure that you had a chance to chat on that right there. Thank you.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've a couple questions, and Mr. Bryan, we've asked you lots of questions. If you don't mind, I'm going to direct these to your technical expert, please. And just really straightforward questions.
Sure.
All right. So, does this company, do your business interests include other material recycle and recovery and waste storage operations in other places?
Mr. Bryan.
That is a you question instead of a me question.
That's a Sid question. We do, absolutely.
Okay.
This is core of our business.
Okay.
Mr. Fritz.
Next question, if you don't mind. What are the processes that you would have in place to prevent contaminant migration to the water systems of the co-located properties of this property? And I think that's a technical question.
Yeah,
Mr. Bryan or Jason.
So, no problem. So modern landfills today have to have a liner system, and it's a multi-phase liner system. And I'll be very specific to the site, since that's what most people here want to hear about, is that specifically here, you're looking at protection of groundwater and surface water from the waste materials that are being placed. At this particular location, we are proposing to actually blast through some of the upper layers of rock to get a stable base that we are then going to engineer back a complete buffer system, a then clay liner system, a synthetic system, leachate collection, and then off-site treatment for the leachate that occurs. Now, I know that's a lot that I just threw out there. So if you can imagine a layer cake of what we're trying to do, all engineered from the get-go. We're engineering basically, compacted clays that have a very low permeability, meaning water's not going to go through them, on multiple layers, and then including into that, putting another plastic layer, which is already required by the rule, across there, and then collecting every bit of leachate. And leachate is simply water that touches waste. Every bit of that water that goes into that site has to get collected and treated. And there are systems in place to maintain that, to prevent leakage. All of those are there to prevent migration of materials, leachates that were mentioned earlier, from getting out of the system. And that's what the new sites would be. The current site that was already brought up actually has 2 liner systems in it, and is actually built over top of a former coke disposal. And I know most people aren't going to imagine what coke is, so just imagine charcoal. If you've not been in the industry, it's basically charcoal. And there are wells that are placed into that area that have been showing, on occasion, twice in 36 years, that there was a higher than normal arsenic level in it. And that's what Representative Spickey brought up. You still have to have those same protections across these new facilities that would be expanded across this one. You would have additional wells in place. You would have additional controls in place to maintain and monitor what's going on. That's just on the groundwater side, to make sure that nothing gets in groundwater. On the surface water side, you have similar protections. You have to run all of the water through treatment ponds. It has to go in sedimentation basins. You have to do water quality standards. You have to sample that. And in our case, we're actually going to then take all of that water and run it through constructed wetlands to further polish it before it goes into the Duck River.
Committee, we are up against a hard stop with another committee. So at this point, we're going to go back into session. We're back in session, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We've got a motion to adjourn and seconded, And without objection, we will be adjourned, and this bill will be put on next week's calendar. Without objection, we're adjourned.